What's going on, guys? Hope everybody is having a great day wherever you are. One of the things that we've seen over the last maybe 10, 15 years is the concentration of power between some of the big tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google, even Apple, or especially around something like logging into specific websites around the internet. Everything from Medium, the site I'm on right now, to Reddit, some of the other sites out there allow you to log into the sites using your Facebook credentials, Twitter credentials, Google credentials, and it's gotten bigger and bigger because most people do not want to log in multiple times and have multiple accounts. Most people don't want to have a password manager because it's kind of annoying, and it's easier for them, even though the security concerns are there, it's easier for them to actually just use one account and log into multiple sites with it. But one of the issues with having one company or maybe three or four large companies control this data is that they're not only seeing everything that you're doing, but the site that you're logging into is also getting a bunch of your data from someone like Facebook. You can even see here. So if you ever see this on a website, continue with Facebook or Twitter, sign in with Twitter, or Google, sign in with Google. You're basically not only allowing Google or Facebook or Twitter to see that you're logging into that site, you're also allowing the site to see some of the permissions, if you allow them, to see your data from those sites like Facebook. So this company here, I shouldn't say it is a company, but it's an open source project, Alias.Earth, is trying to move this into a decentralized manner on the Ethereum blockchain. And it looks like a pretty interesting project, so I thought I would go over it with you guys. Let's just check it out. Your digital identity, the unique online presence that is you, is traded, bought, and sold by a handful of corporations worth billions. It's safe to say that most everyone's digital identity and all the value linked to that identity effectively depends on these behemoths. As the internet takes on even greater social and economic significance, platforms positioned as the de facto identity providers of the internet will continue to solidify their role as the gatekeepers of our online interactions. Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Darth Sidious et al. Didn't become our shadowy overlords by filling out a form at the DMV. The fact that we're all using the same core group of online platforms built around the basic social and economic functions of Web 2.0 is simply an example of the network effect in action. The more users a platform has, this is explaining the network effect. The more users a platform has, the more utility it has, causing more people to join, increasing the utility further, entering a positive feedback cycle. And that was fine at first, which is true. Like I said before, it's much easier to have one login to get to multiple things than have multiple logins and have to write them down or use a password manager. But the thing is, networks are not like memes. Networks have inherent staying power. Despite how relatively easy it's become to build and deploy a social app, it's harder than ever for nascent online communities to self-organize in a truly organic and independent way. Niche applications aside, any coder who sets out to create a new social app that provides functionality comparable to Facebook, but with guarantees to handle users' data more ethically, perhaps, must compete with a consolidated network that already has billions signed up. That's a massive barrier to adoption, and it's the reason why by now most new online spaces emerge as subsets of an existing user base, example being Facebook groups, subreddits. It's easier to start something when everyone doesn't have to make up a new account, but this process has already begun to undermine the biodiversity of the global abstract spaces that we inhabit, making them all a bit more drab, sterile, and ad optimized. Network neutrality is being threatened not only at the ISP level, meaning at the network transport layer, but also in the application layer, just as companies that own infrastructure delivering the raw data should be required to operate on a level playing field. Apps that handle meaningful social data, like profiles, posts, followings, ratings, etc., should succeed on the basis of how effectively they can deliver, organize, and provide interfaces to social data, not by keeping users tied to their ecosystem, tracking them, and monetizing their attention. Facebook, Google, and Twitter have become the internet's source of truth for establishing who is who, what is what, and who posted what and when. Because information about such relationships is siloed in the databases controlled by these companies, profiles and posts can't easily be translated to the other contexts without abandoning their accrued value. Centralization of the social application layer has made individual users and whole communities vulnerable to being, quote, deplatformed, regardless of one's views on the relative importance of free expression versus other ideals. The fact that private for-profit corporations are unilaterally drafting the policies that effectively determine for most of the world who gets to have a voice and who doesn't seems like something that we can all agree probably isn't a super good idea. So I have done a couple of videos about, bank censorship, and I've done a few where I've mentioned stuff about people being deplatformed, whether it's their political views or people just don't like them, label them an extremist. We just had a few more people on Facebook who were deplatformed the past few days, I think like Paul Joseph Watson, a few others. So this is obviously, I'm going to have to disagree that not all of us, there are actually people, it says right here, we can all agree probably isn't a super good idea. And there are some people that like the fact that this stuff is centralized so that they can then censor people with it. But as you can see, this is leading into an actual solution to this problem. I'm going to try and run through this quick. To achieve net neutrality in a social layer, maybe it should be called an app neutrality, users and user-created content must be universal, which is to say that the social context of such data must somehow be contained not in the platform hosting the data, but in the data itself. Such universality makes data extremely resilient because it can be hosted by anyone while retaining the same level of trust, and critically also make it possible for users to move to another platform easily and without losing their reputation, contacts, histories, etc. Instead of Facebook usernames, Twitter usernames, and Google usernames, what's needed to address the root cause of social media homogenization is a way for people to make simply a name. A truly universal name would need to be able to be utilized by any platform as a globally unique identifier, but at the same time not depend on any platform for its very existence. So you can see where this is going. We already have blockchains out there that are decentralized, where we can kind of import data as needed and use it as a source of truth. So this actually goes into basically blockchain. I'm not going to read through this whole part here, but it's about public key cryptography, which is obviously what blockchains are built on. But then it gets down into decentralized network. Bitcoin demonstrated that it's possible to reach agreement about highly specific information. In Bitcoin's case, basically just a ledger mapping addresses to balances systematically and without assigning special privileges to any particular member or node. Turing-complete Ethereum takes that capability one step further, making it possible to reach global, decentralized, leaderless consensus about anything. Well, anything that be represented in a computer, like, say, an address book. Welcome to Alias.Earth. The way Alias.Earth works is actually quite simple. Each person's chosen name or alias, something like Alice Bob or looks like some Asian name, is linked to that person's key on the Ethereum blockchain. Apps that want to know who signed some data can decode the signature to find the key, and then just look at the blockchain to find the person with whom that key is associated. We've created a high-level JavaScript API and library of minimal configuration React components that work with MetaMask, such as a login button and embedded self-verifying messages, to make it really easy for developers to use Alias.Earth in their own apps. So you can see here's a MetaMask button that you would see instead of logging in with Facebook or logging in with Google. And what they're saying is that the data about who's left a message on the website, that block of data can then be hashed and signed with a key, which would be your public key on the Ethereum blockchain. And then what it does is it looks at who signed the block of data on the website, queries against the blockchain to see which name or username correlates to that data, and then that's how they'll know which data is owned by what user on the Ethereum blockchain. So it's actually a pretty inventive method for doing this sort of task, which does decentralize the whole identity portion of this data. And yeah, it's actually not a whole lot of I/O. It's not a whole lot of read and writes to the blockchain. So it's really just a lot of looking up of the public key. So there's not a whole lot involved, and it shouldn't really matter how slow or fast Ethereum is, just to read who owns what block of data. So we, Stuart and Ryan, who are the guys that started Alias.Earth, don't control Alias.Earth. The contract is on the blockchain, and all libraries are open source. If it weren't possible to shut down Alias.Earth, that would defeat the purpose of building it in the first place. We're not shilling a token. We're two developers who quit our jobs to make this idea a reality because it feels like our planet is nearing some kind of tipping point. Global consciousness is expanding, but at the same time, it's beginning to seem that if the future of humanity doesn't turn out like Star Trek, the alternative is Mad Max. Terrifyingly, smart money is betting on the latter. It's a wild time to be alive. They then get into some hippie stuff, which is fine. Everybody can have their point of view. But I will link this in the description if you guys want to check it out. I do believe that these guys have actually created something that could be very useful in the future. I'm not thrilled that, there's even some sites that only allow you to log in to the site with Facebook or Google or Twitter. Very few of them do this, but there are some that are going that direction. And it is kind of annoying. And I'm sure most people are actually, logging into these sites with Facebook because it's convenient for them. So it's best that we do have an alternative that's not putting your data in the hands of these companies. So the link to this will be in the description, like I said, and I do think it's a great idea. Please like, subscribe, share the video if you thought it was useful. And that's all I got for today. Thanks.